How you doing? My Katura isn't working properly, so I'm gonna just record this video, and I'm gonna have the PowerPoint right in my face, and I'm gonna upload that too. And each time I read a book citation or a quote, then that usually means I'm on the next slide, and I'll try to cue that. But anyway, getting right into it. Um, so this is my final project for ethics. So the key points with this presentation, I'm going to summarize my worldview as it pertains to ethics, give a description of my personal life, vision, and mission, and I'm also going to give an explanation of how Christian ethics applies to my personal and professional life, and I'm also going to explain my ethical decision-making process and explain how I'm able to influence the ethical culture at my work or organization. So, starting off with the third slide, my ethical worldview. From the textbook, I took the paragraph. Our world is a real marketplace of ideas, and whether the ideas we face are religious, political, economic, or social, decisions about those ideas are unavoidable, and we have to make choices. We cannot choose them all. The reason why I chose this is because I feel like that illustrates my worldview of ethics being very complicated. It is not a subject that you can just read one book on and you're golden. Um, to show how complicated ethics are on a world scale, I've deployed to the Middle East numerous of times, and if you're caught stealing there, they more than likely are going to take a body part or a limb. Here, if you get caught stealing, it's more of a citation, or you might have to go to jail for a little while. Um, and even that in itself is a difference. Um, Along with the worldview, I feel like there needs to be a balance, which brings me to my next slide, which is going to be my personal life and goals. And the book text that I took from there is maybe we need some standard to provide a balanced reason. This does not require that our ethics be rational. It may be that human reason alone cannot build an ethical system adequate to the demand of life. And the reason why I took that is because for me, balance is important. Just to give a little story, I remember when I started going to college, most scientists that I met, they were all atheists or whatever have you. They didn't believe in God or whatever. And I came across this biology teacher, and I asked him a question, and I figured I would get the same answer about him being an atheist or not believing in God. But to the contrary, he believed in God. He was a devout Christian, and he said you have to have balance. If you don't have balance, you're usually going to run into a problem somewhere. And I kind of took that with me everywhere I went. And how that plays into my life is when I was younger, I probably teetered along the edges of ethical egoism because I was selfish as a young person. I didn't care, like Christmas time, if I wanted a toy or a gaming system. I didn't care what my parents had to do for me to get the system or hardship that they might have had to go through. It was just my happiness that was important to me. Now, as I started to get older and I started to socialize more, then I think I started to go to the other side of the spectrum to utilitarianism, because like being in the band or playing football or any sports, you have to be a team player in order um, to win. You can't be a lone ranger unless you're in the band and you have a solo or something like that. So started out with ethical egoism and then went to utilitarianism. And then as I got to the age that I'm at now, I definitely try to find a balance, because if I'm one or the other, it's pretty much detrimental to my thoughts and my actions that I might display. So moving on from my personal life and goals. So the next slide, which is Christian ethics in my personal life. For this one, I chose Genesis 6:5, which which says, "Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." So, with that being said, they say imitation is the highest form of flattery. So, I try to emulate God and Jesus, knowing I'm never going to come close to that. The reason why I imitate is because I feel like if I try to walk in their shoes or be like them, I'd be more conscious of the decisions that I make. I'm less likely to make dumb decisions because I'm trying to walk in their shoes. And that's why the quote I have on the slide is "aim for the moon and land amongst the stars," because if you dream big, even if your dreams don't come true, you will reap some type of benefit. And a sports analogy I'll use is Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Michael Jordan, to some, is the greatest basketball player to play the game, and Kobe Bryant, who won 5 championships, compared to Jordan 6, he imitated Michael Jordan, and that affected his work ethic and his mentality. So that's in my personal life. That's how I try to operate. Which then brings me to my next slide, which is Christian ethics in the workplace, and it kind of changes from there. Uh, and with that being said, the paragraph that I chose from the book is going to be, "For many, this gives depth to Christian ethics. God is more than a being who does good; He is good. Similarly, the goal of for the Christian is not just a balance sheet that shows more good deeds than evil. We are to become virtuous people who reflect the nature of God." So, for this one in the workplace, my Christian ethics, it's all about love. And God is love, and I associate love with an altruistic behavior, which kind of plays in part with what Professor Wilson in my aviation administration course, his definition of business is an institution created by God where one can serve, love, and meet the needs of others. And that's important because, especially as aviators, that's pretty much our whole job is meeting the needs of others. If you're a pilot, you're responsible for, safely navigating the aircraft to the next location. If you're a maintainer, then you're responsible for making sure the aircraft is safe and airworthy. And if you do it with love, hey, it'll always come out right. And not to spend too much time because I know it's 9 to 15 minutes, but real quick. And I kind of think about it like this, if you can follow me. Man is always going to sin. In aviation, there's always going to be human error. If you love God, you're going to start to mitigate the sin. As you're not going to get rid of all of it, but you're going to mitigate it for a lot of that sin. In aviation, if you do your job with love, then you're going to start to mitigate some of that human error. You're not going to get rid of all of it, but you're going to be more mindful of it. So I don't know if you can follow what I'm trying to say right there, but that's why I chose the paragraph that I did. Moving right along. I know you guys can't see it, but if you pull up the PowerPoint, you'll be able to see it. My ethical decision path. First, you're going to identify the problem. And with identifying the problem, you're going to separate fact and opinion. Then you're going to identify the constituents, diagnose the situation, analyze your options, and analyze the consequences. Make a choice, and then you're going to act. And after you act, you want to measure the results. So, the ethical influence in the workplace, and this will be story time before we wrap up. So, pretty much, I've never been the fastest mechanic, and I have done combat deployments as a technician. And one thing that I think that I learned that plays into influence and ethics in the workplace is courage. And I say that because when I got to commercial aviation, everything's hustle and bustle. Some people cut corners, that's fine. But that's not how I get down. If I got a maintenance action to do, I sit down, read the task, understand the task, and then I start to work. You know you're getting quality work, and if I am going to be late, I got a good reason for it. Long story short, there was a lead, and this lead was like, got technicians to cut corners and things like that. And it started to play on the psyche of these technicians and their anxiety and things like that. So when the technician would come work with me, they'd be like, hey, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, or I didn't do this. I'm like, no, that's not, we don't do that here. And I explained to them why. And so they don't feel the pressure. And then I teach them, it's okay to say no and do the right things, regardless if a plane's not gonna make it to gate. I'd rather a plane be late than fall out of the sky. Or I'd rather be correct than it fall out of the sky. It goes back to that human error and love, just like with, I think, Alaskan Airlines 461 or whatever Alaskan Airlines was, and they were checking the backlash and the acne, the nut came loose, it was right on the line, but somebody wrote it up and they was like, we need to change it. But the day shift or the night shift, whoever was like, yo, we need to get this plane out. We don't want to deal with it. And then look what happened. It falls out of the sky. So that kind of goes back to the whole love thing will mitigate human error if you do it with genuine love, just like if you love God genuinely, you'll mitigate the sin. But so influencing ethics in the workplace, it basically comes down to having courage and creating that safety culture. Because also, once new technicians start getting the courage and they create a safety culture, now you're going to start to suffocate the negative technicians or the shade tree mechanics, because now you're trying to get this person to do something shady, and they have the courage and the testicular fortitude to say no, I'm going to do it by the book. Now they can bring it up to supervision, and if supervision is doing what they're supposed to do, then pretty much that person should get dealt with. I mean, I'm not saying fire them, but give them an opportunity to change their ways, and yeah, I hope I hit all the wickets, man. And on the last slide, you can see my references and everything like that. My name's Mackenzie Durton. Godspeed.